All right, looks like I'm live. Just give this a couple minutes before we get started so that everybody can join us. As you're hopping on, you can say hi so I know who's here and tell me where you are coming in from. Curious to know where everyone is in the world and how are you doing right now. And we'll just get started in just a minute. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Brianna. Hi, Danielle. How are you guys all doing? And we'll get started in just a minute. Just let some more people hop on. Berlin. Hi, Brianna. How are you? How is everyone doing? And are you guys excited? This is literally, it's gonna blow your minds. I cannot wait to talk about all of this. Brianna's in Michigan. Jenny from Florida. Hello. Okay. All right. So we're talking about some terms and some things that maybe you've heard before, but most likely what I'm going to be talking about has a different spin on it than you've had before. I have a slightly different way of looking at all of this, so just be prepared that maybe this is not exactly what you think it's going to be. Maybe it is exactly, but I do have a little bit of a different perspective on all of this. Brianna, good, totally new to me. Yes, I've never talked about this before, so this is a pretty exciting live right now. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to be talking about the wounded feminine, which is a term that is my term. I know you probably have heard it before. I have no idea if you've heard it in the same context as what I'm going to be talking about it in. And the masculine, and in particular what I call the false masculine, also my term, so may or may not apply to anything that you have ever heard before in terms of this, okay? So it's probably going to be brand new the way that I am framing all of this, because I have a pretty different perspective than most people who are using these terms. So this is based on my unique method, my unique understanding, my own life experience, and the work that I've done for myself and my clients. And this is how I contextualize and start to understand what's really going on when we're doing this work and what's happening here. So this is why we're not where we want to be in relationships through the lens that I can help explain this to you in our love lives and also just in our lives in general, because the wounded feminine or the false masculine play out everywhere in our lives. They don't just show up in our relationships. So I will say about this content or this topic that I've hesitated to talk about the masculine and the feminine at all, because often it's pretty fluffy when people talk about it, sometimes gimmicky and kind of surface level typically is what I see. It doesn't have a ton of actual substance. So I've read a lot of books, I've taken a lot of courses, even really expensive courses by people with huge followings, and they use this kind of terminology and really it changed nothing for me. So I want you to know that this is not going to be like what you may have heard before, because for me it was not a useful way of understanding or thinking about this. So as you know, and maybe if you're new to me, you don't know, but you will find out soon, that I'm all about depth and truth and usefulness and science and actual transformation. That is the whole thing. That is what I'm doing. So this is going to be different than how you have probably heard about these issues described, and also different solutions than you've heard before, because I have a unique understanding of all of this. And my goal is always what is actually really going to make a true transformation for someone. So most coaches who are talking about the feminine, the masculine, they tend to not actually have real solutions for it. It's this concept. They might say something like get into your feminine or receiving, and then the problem that I had for myself and that I see for my clients is that if you have what I'm going to talk about with the wounded feminine or the false masculine at play, and you don't trust the masculine, then that's never really going to happen just by willpower. You won't just get into a more feminine being or heal the wounded feminine just by willpower. because you know that I base my work on hard science, psychology, neuroscience, biology, transformation. And so this is going to be different than you may have heard before, you may have seen before, and it connects to other videos. If you've watched my other stuff, it connects to my other work in really important ways. So I'll also contextualize that for you as well. So this is going to be quite an important live stream in my work because this is something new that I'm bringing in, this vocabulary. And it's likely that the conversation that we're going to have today is going to crack you open and show you things that you didn't see were connected before. So don't resist being moved by it. Really allow in what all of it may mean for you and for your life, and allow yourself to feel the impact of what I'm going to show you. Okay, so to start, I know we have some more people hopping on right now, so I'd love to know who's here. So where are you watching from? Where are you joining me from? And then I've asked this question in the group already, but are you typically in your life, as you understand masculine, feminine, are you more often in your feminine or are you more often in your masculine? Which one do you find yourself in your life? So let me know. That also helps me just know who's here with me right now and what's going on for you. So in your life, are you more often in your feminine or your masculine? And we'll talk about why that might be in a minute. So just take a deep breath right now and just like really get present for the conversation that we're going to have. So make sure that you're sitting somewhere where you can really listen and focus and just really be present for this conversation. And we're going to get started. So first I want to define the feminine and the masculine as I use it, because not everybody is using it in the exact same way. And so when I'm talking about it, this is what I'm meaning. So Jenny said she's in her masculine for sure. Jennifer also masculine. Lisa is in Hawaii. Hello, Lisa. And probably masculine. Brianna is not sure. You might have an answer to this after Brianna. Yeah. Okay, great. So all of you who are saying I'm in my masculine normally, this is going to be really, really enlightening for you, hopefully. So first of all, the way that I'm defining the feminine, and after I explain this, you can then tell me, oh yeah, I definitely resonate with that or that. So the true feminine, as I'm going to call it, is open, receptive, receiving, trusting of herself, of others. She knows she is divinely guided and supported. She's in a state of being, much more so than doing. And at her best, she feels like full of love, full of emotion, full of feeling. She's more emotional feeling. And her deepest desire is connection and love. So that's the true feminine, and that's the true state of the true feminine. What I'm calling the true masculine would be somebody who is in a provider role, a supporter role, a champion role. It's the doer, action taker, the kingdom builder, achiever, and is always going after goals, action, accomplishing, doing things, being powerful in the world. And at the true masculine's best, I'm going to say he feels empty. And that means doesn't feel anything. That's his desire. This is very different than the feminine desire. And the true masculine tends to be more rational and thinking based, whereas the feminine is emotional and feeling based. What the masculine wants is freedom and power. And for the masculine, freedom is to be able to go out in the world and do and create those things and pursue what he wants to pursue, with the freedom of being alone, actually. So most women have a dominant feminine essence, okay? And the way you can know is if you look back at yourself as a very, very, very young child, because even at very young ages, we start to internalize more of the masculine. You want to look and see what were you more like at that very young age before anything really had happened and imprinted on you or changed you in any way. Were you more in a masculine essence or more in a feminine essence? That will then tell you what your essence probably is underneath the things that you've become over your lifetime. And the natural state of the feminine child is open, receptive, trusting, receiving, seeking love and connection in the moment, just being. That's the natural state of the feminine child. However, as children, this can be cut off if we don't experience an environment where we feel safe, where we feel seen, where we feel heard, where we feel appreciated for who we are, where we feel supported. So if that happens, then that natural state can disappear. So as an adult, it can also be cut off as a response to things in life that happen to us. For example, relationships that we get ourselves into that are not good, that do not feel supportive, where we do not feel seen, heard. It could have been from a bad divorce. It could have been other life circumstances. Could be that now you're a single mom. Any of those things can actually shift you out of the feminine more into this masculine. I'm going to talk about what I mean by the false masculine, because that is different from the masculine that I just defined. So if you said, I'm primarily in my masculine, and then you look back at your childhood and you see what you were like as a very, very, very young child before much had happened, then you may not be actually in a true masculine if your essence is this feminine. So if you said, I'm primarily in my masculine, I offer that this may actually have been a response to things that happened in your life and not your true natural state. And we'll find out if this is the case for you as I continue describing all of this. So we all do have both masculine and feminine in us, true masculine, true feminine, and both do get to be developed in us. And it's important that they both are, because we need both sides to be effective in life. However, our society favors the masculine energy, which is the goal-oriented, productive, doing, achieving, right? Because of work, right? This is our value in society, is what we can produce typically, right? So what I'm going to be talking about is not just the ability to switch between the masculine and feminine. For example, like I'm in my masculine at work because I'm in the achieving, doing mode, and then I get home and I switch to my feminine. That's not what I'm talking about. If you do that, that's awesome. That's perfect. You need that. But what I'm going to be talking about is actually the essence that you are. And when you can't live through the feminine beyond just choice, because that could be a choice to switch between those two like that. Because to some women, it will not feel like they have a choice to be masculine or feminine. So let's continue. I'm going to get deeper into this. So what will happen is that when our craving for love and connection is unmet and circumstances of life don't appear to support us, the feminine inner child will build this protective shell around her so that she doesn't ever have to feel the pain again. And typically this starts in childhood, so there was some pain in childhood. And although it remains unhealed and it's ready to be triggered at any moment, she builds this protective shell so she doesn't feel that pain anymore. So often a woman who looks like she has a really powerful masculine essence, energy essence, she's actually a feminine energy that is wounded and unhealed, and it's protected by what I'm going to be calling the false masculine, and that is that shell or that persona that we put on as protection. That's the false masculine, because it appears like the masculine, but it's not. It's actually a response to something that happened in life. So it's not the true masculine. It's more like a front or a protective armor, and it can appear very much like the masculine, but it's not actually. And you can know if it's the real thing or not because you'll have trouble trusting if this is operating in your life. You may have trouble receiving. You would have trouble being open, experiencing pleasure, feeling safe, loving yourself. You'll always be partly guarded and feel like no one sees or knows the real you. And this is why I say that it can be very, very lonely. This woman who has an unhealed feminine, that wound, and carries the false masculine as protection, it's keeping people out. It feels very lonely. So you'll feel like people don't really see you or know the real you. And also, you'll feel like if they wouldn't like who you actually are. So there's also shame wrapped up in this, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more too, like why that is. So the feminine energy that is wounded looks like a masculine energy. It looks like an overachiever. It looks like she's really driven and ambitious, and she's pushing, going, pushing, hustling, providing, doing it on her own. But the wounded feminine protects part of herself by creating that false masculine armor. And that's why I call it the false masculine. There's a core wound there. Typically it's I'm not lovable, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not enough. One of these three are driving it. So typically it starts very, very early in childhood. That's why I said to know if you've got the feminine essence or not, you have to go back a really, really long time, because it starts very early that we start to build a protection around us. So I see this in clients almost all the time, that as a child, they experienced being unseen and unheard by caretakers, parents. Maybe there was drama between the parents, volatile fighting, violence of some sort. It wasn't a safe home environment, and the parents were otherwise preoccupied with each other. They weren't really seeing her. Maybe there were siblings who needed a lot more care and attention. For example, maybe they were sick. Maybe they just were more troublesome, or had just some higher needs for some reason, and they got more attention. So for example, in my family, it was simply that I had two younger brothers, and my dad was sick for a long time when I was young, so my mom was very preoccupied, and I spent a lot of time alone, really too much time alone. So typically, I see this as this young girl part experience that she needed not to cause a stir, not be a problem. She needed to be, quote unquote, a good girl, modulating her self-expression so that she could be accepted and praised and therefore noticed, right? So often this is through high achievement, like in school or sports or some other area. And even if the persona she created isn't really who she is. And that's important too, because it's a persona we put on. So she experiences this cognitive dissonance, like they see me as this thing, and now I have to keep up what it appears that I am, but they don't really see me, right? So therefore they don't really know me, they don't really love me, and we could go down the whole thing with that. So she experienced also, because of preoccupation of her parents for whatever reason, not being comforted in times of need. So she would be crying alone in her room. And the decision that she makes is, I'm alone, I have to comfort myself. So do you remember how this happened for you? In your childhood, what did that look like? Do you have those kinds of experiences or memories? You may want to look and see what's there. So I have a vivid memory of hiding in a closet in my house for, it must have been 2+ hours. It felt like a really long time in like my 5-year-old, I was about 5 years old, I think. And I was just like hiding in this dark closet, waiting for someone to come find me for hours. And when no one did, I eventually got out, and it was sad because I wanted someone to find me. And this is like the logic of like the 5-year-old brain. So I don't remember other logic around that moment. It was imprinted in my brain though that I did this, just waiting and waiting to be found. So that was the feeling that this girl has, right? And you have your own version of that. So when that, we also, so part of this is also there's the I want to be found. I want someone to notice, right? So the decision that we make is that no one is going to rescue me, that the wounded feminine part decides actually no one's going to rescue me. And if you look, I would guess that you likely had fantasies about being rescued as a young girl, like Disney princess kind of fantasies. I know I did. Mine was Snow White. I was obsessed with her as a little girl. I like had like a Snow White birthday. I had like the whole costume. I had the doll. I had like everything. I'd be replaying those moments with friends, like obsessed with that, right? So you may see in yourself, I also had this rescue fantasy, being found fantasy. So what happens is that never actually pans out in reality, right? And so then you decide you need to rescue yourself. And this is the armor, this is the protection. So you become very independent. Often that's actually a point of pride, right? And it's to this point where you actually may have given up on dreams to do something practical and shut off that part of yourself. So often signs that you've done this are you may have anger or resentment turned towards other, like for example, an irresponsible ex or other men, or you just don't trust the masculine. And this is often, and this is important, it is also turned on ourselves. So you'll have a strong inner critic and you won't feel like you're enough, and you probably won't really trust yourself if you look. So as an adult, what ends up happening is that we have these strong protective walls. That's a false masculine keeping people, and specifically men, at a safe distance. You are an extremely hard worker. You are ambitious. You're an achiever. You do it all on your own though. And this is part of that loneliness, right? Because I'm on my own. Hi, Genevieve. So, however, like I said, you're going to feel extremely lonely and alone, because that's what the false masculine does. That's when we have the unhealed feminine. So you go through life not feeling supported, not feeling seen, not feeling heard, not feeling provided for. And typically, like I said, that's actually something you're proud of. Like, I did that all on my own. I don't need anyone. But at the same time, that is the exact same place where the wound is and the pain is. That you can't trust anyone to be there for you, that you cannot trust that they will support you, and you do not believe that anyone is actually going to save you. That's also the wound, right? So with men in dating, this is how it shows up. There's probably like 1 to 4 ways it is going to show up. So typically, you are going to attract a man who needs support and doesn't support you. I see this all the time. So it could be that you're supporting him emotionally. It could be that you're supporting him financially. It could be both. Typically, what I hear from clients is he was irresponsible. And so now I'm hyper responsible. But that was a decision you actually made even long before you met him, that you would have to do that. So you'll typically be in fixing energy toward him. And of course, that's killing all the attraction. And you'll be in competitive energy toward him as well. Like, I'm right, you're wrong. This is the false masculine operating. Or you're going to find somebody who worships you, but whom you don't actually love. So that allows you to keep your protective walls up and you're in control. And so you don't actually get hurt because the fear is being hurt, right? And I can tell you, I have 100% done that again and again. The other side that will happen is that you might find a guy who is not available. You're going to fall for guys who are not available. And why would you do that? Because in the subconscious, it's reinforcing the belief that I'm not enough. And we always are trying to just prove what we subconsciously believe. So I also, if you know my story, those are the only guys I ever fell for. We're the ones who were actually unavailable. On the flip side, you may find a really great guy who is there for you and then self-sabotage. Why? Because the wounded part believes you don't deserve him. So this is like Eric and me running from him, like a million times that I ran from him because couldn't handle, right? Self-sabotage. Or, this is the other way it shows up, is you just don't date at all. Because you don't need anyone, you're fine on your own, you're independent, I've got no time for it, I'm not interested in it, you're avoiding it, and the reality is you're afraid, right? That's the reality. But it doesn't appear that way, right? Because we want to appear like we are totally fine being on our own, being independent, taking care of everything. If you've got a husband or a boyfriend, you're still feeling like you're the only one holding everything together. So you'll feel this responsibility to work, to provide, and you're always going, hustling, right? You can't stop, and you get used to that. That's just the way it is, and there's pride in that. And then at the same time, if you were to rest and stop for a second, you would feel exhausted, right? But you just don't know any other way. You don't know another way to be. And the mindset is, I have to do this, I have to be like this, or it will all crumble. It never feels secure. And that's really the key, is that you never feel secure. And that is why it's like this treadmill that you cannot get off of, right? Because if I stop, it's gonna all crumble. And there's the fear. So because you're a doer, you probably have read a million self-help books and taken courses and hired therapists and listened to podcasts and the YouTube videos and everything, right? Because you're trying to fix, you're trying to find it, right? You're the action, do. But just not the action. You're doing all the action, but not the action that's actually going to shift this. And so I'm going to talk about what you need to do. But typically this is what I see. So the effects of living in the false masculine are that you don't feel supported. You won't let yourself be supported. That's the truth. And the false masculine is going to fight you to the death about this. It will not let you, because it's like, we don't trust anyone, right? We can't trust. We aren't safe. That's what it's saying. So you have this feeling of, I have to be all on my own. I have to do it all on my own. And this is really the source of all the pain. So you're going through life all alone. And even if you do have a partner, you will still feel alone and unseen when you're operating from the wounded feminine and the false masculine. And you don't fully open up to the masculine. So you meet the man who is in his true masculine and you run, right? Because you're going to be hiding, you're going to be lying, you're going to be withholding, you're not going to be sharing everything. You're going to have fears and anxieties and deep feelings of, I'm not good enough, right? So you're not trusting fully. We've discussed that before. You're feeling unseen, or it's not safe to be seen. There's the shame there. And your fear of losing independence, because it will also manifest as that, the fear of being dependent shows up as well. And that's just, again, the trust wound. So, by the way, if you have watched any of my other videos, this actually maps onto the avoidant or the fearful avoidant attachment styles. So if you're wondering, it maps onto that. It's got a similar thing going on. So you might want to go back and watch. I haven't done one on fearful avoidant yet. I will be, but the avoidant is close enough. That's actually the piece of it anyways that you'll see. So if you're hearing this and it's resonating, I want you to know that I was in your shoes. I have lived this life. I know this pain, and also there's a way out. So a while back, I had I'm trying to remember what she called herself. It was chakra reading. She was an energy reader. She read chakras. I was like, yeah, okay, read my chakras. I don't know if I believe in this. Like, what is she going to possibly come up with, right? And when she did the reading, she was like holding her hand, like scanning my body like this with her hand, like in front of, down my body, the chakra point, stopping at each chakra. And when she got to my heart chakra, she stops. She doesn't say anything. She's just like holding it there. And then she started doing some motion or something. And she was like, your heart chakra. And she was almost like shocked. She was like, your heart chakra is like closed. Like it's like so closed. And I was like, yeah, well, that probably makes sense. And she was like, so this is what I read. And it was so spot on. It like killed me. She was like, you're like extremely lonely. Like you feel like nobody sees you. Like you are all alone. Like nobody's actually getting in to your world. Like nobody can get in. And I just remember bursting into tears because this was literally my biggest shame. Like, and I'm starting to cry because guys, this is the pain, right? So I know, I know what it's like. You feel like you're alone in the world. And you cannot let anyone in when you have these walls up. And this was the heart chakra that was closed because it was trying to protect itself. So do you see that in you? Is this something that you're like, yep, that's me. Yep, I know what you're talking about. If someone were to say that to me, I would burst into tears too. If you recognize that, no, there's a way out. But it's not easy, but there is a way out. So healing that wound is my life's work. It's such a huge part of the work that I do with my clients because when we want love and we don't have it, it is never because there is no one who will love us. It's because we will not let someone love us. That's what it is. It's the wounded or the false masculine and the wounded feminine. These walls that you think are protecting you, and they're actually the reason that nobody is getting in. So you may have been divorced, you may have children or no children. And maybe if you do have children, that's just an extra stress and the feeling that, nope, I cannot let anyone in. It feels like a burden that you have to do this all on your own. And it's feeling like I am alone, even if somebody is in your life and they're like, I'm here for you. You're like, no, I don't believe that. I don't feel that, right? This is what happens. So with or without kids, you are avoiding dating altogether. You're focusing on you. You're focusing on your career because you've got to do it all alone, right? So of course you're going to be so ambitious. Of course you're going to be so goal-driven and you're going to work so hard and it feels like there is no way out. So you might be saying, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to date. It's not fun to date. And really it's the fear. It's the fear and like that you don't actually know how to get out of that. So why is this the case? Well, I'm sure if you know what I'm talking about, you know why, right? Because weakness will be taken advantage of. This is the paradigm of the false masculine. It's that weakness will be taken advantage of, and I cannot trust, right? So in her mind, weakness is vulnerability, or vulnerability is weakness, which is dangerous. right? So therefore, I cannot be fully seen, and I can't allow myself to be fully supported, because that would be weak. Why? Because I've been let down in the past. And by the way, that's a story. It is not true, but that feels true to you, and your nervous system and your entire love blueprint and your entire belief system says that that's true. And this is why we have to heal the core wounds, because me telling you this does nothing. You can hear it, and it's like, I'm not on that planet. Like, I hear you, I hear there's a planet like that, and I don't know how to get there. That's how it sounds. I know, because I've been on the other side, where it's like, that sounds really nice. Like, oh, feminine sounds nice. I love that idea. Can't get there, right? Because you got to heal the core wound. You have to go there. So weakness can be taken advantage of, right? So there's no room for vulnerability. That's the shield. That's the armor, right? And also, if I am vulnerable, if I show who I really am, because in childhood that meant no one was there, I was alone, then the fear is I'll be rejected, right? I'm not good enough is the core wound, one of the core wounds that may be operating, right? There's something fundamentally wrong with me. So this is also why she feels like she needs to control everything, because the wounded